It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Jill Obrochta, RDH, BS, all the way from Sarasota, Florida. Jill is a 20-year-plus veteran of the clinical dental hygiene arena who now owns and operates a web education company dedicated to successful OSHA and HIPAA compliance for healthcare professionals. She is considered one of the country's top dental OSHA HIPAA for healthcare compliance experts. For the past several years of her career, Jill has been a compliance researcher, product developer, and OSHA HIPAA training specialist. She is an internationally published writer and educator for several top industry manufacturers, including Capital One, Pik Technologies, 3M, Proctor Gamble. She is founder of the HIPAA omnibusrule.com and dentalenhancements.com. Her team of helpful compliance educators provides web-based education nationwide, specializing in OSHA Made Easy and HIPAA Made Easy training solutions for the private practice sector in healthcare. So when you work with Capital One, Pik, 3M, Procter Gamble. So do you know the CEO of Pik?
I know some of the educators there.
Yeah, I've been trying to get the CEO of Pik. I've got a lot of the CEOs on, but at Pik because, after implants are placed in 60 months, 20% have peri-implantitis. And the patients that want fixed, they don't want removable. I mean, removable implant, you could take out, you could snap it off and clean up. So this Pik technology, it's got to get out there more.
And it's so good. It's so good. Dr. Farran, I'll hook you up with Carol Jan. Carol Jan is their educator, and we'll kind of weave your way into her. I know sometimes it's so strange, but that Pik just formed my career, and you can't beat it, man. For implants, it's so beautiful. So I will forward your email to her.
Yeah. Tell her I want to get her on the show because and then there's another thing that with Pik that I've noticed chairside is that everybody hates the Pik because it makes a mess in the bathroom. And I'm a bachelor living with 3 of my sons. This is a huge bachelor pad. We actually have roaches and rats and gnats, and none of that bothers. But I think that Pik has to go into the shower, and they've now got a portable unit.
They have one for the shower.
But almost none of the patients know about it, and I don't think none of the dentists realize that if you got to make the behavior stick, and if you can turn them on to a product that's not going to get water splashes all over their mirror and kitchen sink and all that kind of stuff, and then you take it in the shower. I mean, you could do anything in the shower. But anyway, not to get off sidetracked. So you're from Sarasota, Florida, where my roommate from Creighton, the most famous dentist in the world, Randy Kerwin. Did you ever meet Randy Kerwin?
Dr. K, I sure did. I was, before this life, I was a dental sales supply rep, so I know Dr. Kerwin from back then. And, small community, small beach community. He's a cool guy. I'll have to razz him about you a little bit.
He is the coolest guy. His dad was a bigwig at Maytag in Iowa. And cool. He's an amazing dentist, amazing businessman, and a wannabe hunter.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. You can't do it all, right? You have to work at something.
So what's got you passionate today? What are you passionate about? What's new with you?
God, I'm just so passionate about 2018 is going to bring down the pike a lot of cool things in compliance. And I am just really passionate about my team, who is just really aligned to talk about new areas of compliance. CDC has new guidelines. HIPAA's doing audits. So we're just spreading the word, and it's always fun to get reignited in the new year, So we're pretty excited about some of the new things, without changing it too much, making it complicated. You want things streamlined, implemented into your dental office so you can just focus on the art of dentistry. So we're just really passionate about doing this boring compliance thing, but that's our little niche. So we're really excited. We're pretty excited about Dental Town too. Dr. Farran, I have to tell you, thank you so much, man, for letting us be involved on the message board. It is wonderful what we can really share and disseminate. So it's pretty good stuff.
And we just redid. We've been working on it for a year. We just redid the mobile version. We always had a Rocking Hot desktop and a Rocking Hot app. But now, if you just go to dentaltown.com on Google, it's the same. Amazing. But this HIPAA and OSHA is going to go to a different level because of social media. When I talk to people at the CDC, they say years ago, they might see a hepatitis cluster break out, but they really weren't sure where it was coming from. But now they can take those hepatitis and they can take DNA and they can say, hey, these 20 people are all linked, and the only thing they had in common is they ate at Macayo's Mexican restaurant or they went to this oral surgeon. And now the downside, I mean, I know a good old boy in Oklahoma who was just a good old boy doing everything right, but he wasn't checking his autoclave and he was making a few mistakes. And social media and Facebook, I mean, it just ruined them. So now, so now with today's social media transparency, you screw up and you go give 20 patients hepatitis or something, you're gonna be bankrupt and out of business.
God, not only that, with Facebook posts, I have this kind of presentation I do called HIPAA Horror Stories. And one of them is about Facebook. Even implying that you're a patient and having a conversation publicly, you can get HIPAA involved. Did you know the average HIPAA inspection or audit lasts like 18 months, and the least amount of fine for a dentist is $10,000. It goes up to $150,000. We just don't want to put docs at risk like that. Not only the social media like Facebook, be careful what they post on Yelps. No one wants a dentist never wants someone to criticize their work publicly. You want to press the buttons and fill in and defend yourself, but it is really important to be cautious. Facebook, Yelping, just kind of control yourself. Don't Yelp back and really think before you press those keys. Once you put it out there, Facebook you can take back. It's rough when you put up a comment on Yelp. Better to call that client directly and really give them some satisfaction and try to kind of curb their enthusiasm,
Well, Amazon, they call it the FANG, the Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and Microsoft are just crushing it. But one of the big deals with Amazon is they patented that one click. So once you've already made a purchase and you don't have to go back and re-enter your credit card. So you see something, one click. Well, now they just patented a one-click video review. And I think the video review is going to be huge because just asking you, what percent of Americans do you think are just batshit crazy?
Oh, man. In my business? Geez, that would be like up to 50, 60, 80%.
Yeah. So I mean, when I was sitting at Thanksgiving dinner, I mean, my God, a Farran family reunion should be, it should be a genetic discovery. They should have scientists in there looking for inbreeding and mutations. So when somebody says a review, I mean, if you could actually see the person writing the review, you might just one glance say, okay, well, she's not right in the head. And I've never responded to a review because, number one, you stir shit, makes it stink. We call them, we talk to them over the phone. This one guy I was calling, every single argument he would say, I'm the warehouse manager. And it just reminded me of that skit from Saturday Night Live with Will Ferrell when he'd say, I drive a Toyota or a Ford, Yeah, I mean, it's like, okay, why have you told me 8 times you're the warehouse manager? And you realize you're dealing with, a chimpanzee, Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon, whose mama dropped him on his head. So I've never replied on any of that stuff. But what is the legal trouble of replying to Yelp and Facebook regarding HIPAA?
They get so blown out of proportion. So normally when you have a breach with HIPAA and you leak, let's say you get your backup drive stolen. By the way, like a take-along backup drive, just like get rid of it, man. It's supposed to be off-site and encrypted. Do yourself a favor, just get the reliable cloud backup. So let's say that a dentist is dedicated to those backup drives. They don't want to get rid of them. So they have the backup drive. If it gets stolen or lost, more than 500 patient files lost or stolen, you've got to report that to HIPAA, to the media. You have to report it to patients within 60 days. And then really a trainer like myself, we can't really help you out much. You get a HIPAA lawyer, 50 grand. The average fine for that is $150,000. No, so that's more than 500 patients. We don't want any vulnerability. When we're putting in place training solutions, we want to make sure that doc's airtight. Get rid of the backup drives. But the onesie, the one person, I had it last week, a client, an ex-employee at the dental office, gets on Facebook with a current patient. He's complaining that his insurance wasn't properly processed. And the ex-employee said, hey, I think you already used that cleaning 2 months before. They couldn't put through on the insurance. Do you know that escalated to a HIPAA audit? So now this poor office is in 18 months, risk of 10, 20, 50 grand in fines. It's just an administrative nightmare. Best thing, best advice, what you're saying. Don't respond. Get them on the phone if you can. Talk it out. But when you start putting things in print, in public, on the internet, we're getting ourselves in really hot water. You don't know where the landmines start and stop.
Yeah, that's great. So so you recommend a cloud backup?
Yeah, I recommend that they have a reliable, secure cloud backup, for sure.
And what vendor would you recommend on the cloud backup?
I love iCore Connect.
You love what?
iCore Connect. iCore Connect, a new company, and they went through all the ADA rigors. They're the only one that's ADA approved, which, you know, that's a lot of red tape, and you got to get through all that stuff. And you
got to bribe them.
You got to bribe them.
They always shake you down for money. I remember several. I've had dinner with several CEOs. Some of them come to mind, like Bob Ibsen and Denmat. Say every time they go in there to get ADA approval, all it is a presentation of donating money for this ADA cause, and then so he says after they do the shakedown. But anyways. So
iCore Connect, man, they do it so well. I love them because everything is offsite encrypted and secure, and they give really good value help. Not just you're put on hold, you can't get through, but they're giving a really good cloud-based service for a pretty good price. The other one I like DDS Rescue a lot as well. I don't really like servers being left on premises, or if you have a server, we want to make sure that server is not left at the front desk. You know, why are we doing all this HIPAA stuff these days? Well, in 2013, everything changed to these new omnibus rules. And under these new rules, the government's scrutinizing privacy and security. If you have a server on Office, don't leave it under the front desk, man. That's the first place that identity thieves are going to look for. They rip that thing out, and on the black market, a server can hold up to 2,000, 3,000 patient files. That's going to be that big fine and audit. So move your server to a more secure location if you're keeping it on site, like a ventilated closet, or lock it down with a server cage or a server locker. That's real cheap insurance. $300-400 for a server locker that bolts to the ground or bolts down to a piece of furniture. And then if you have an identity thief come in the office to steal a laptop, backup drives, anything that's unencrypted or you know, kind of free and loose to steal, that's where identity thieves, at least in Florida and California, it's pretty rampant. Now these incidents are even happening in rural areas because the identity thieves know that it's least likely to be kind of mainstream knowledge, you know. So we want to be really careful about backups, encryption, make sure you're off-site. It can get overwhelming. You know, this HIPAA stuff is just, it's loaded, it's heavy.
So you're in Sarasota, Florida. That iCore Connect is in Windmere, Florida. Is that near Sarasota?
It's not. It's not really close at all. In fact, I've never met them. I just know that we've worked with them. I'm a web-based company, so I talk to people all day long, like we're doing right now. You know, we screen share. Over the last 2-3 years, I've watched their product grow and evolve, and they're just like down to earth, easy to talk to. It's best for a doctor first to get educated. And don't sign on the dotted line until you know what you're getting, you price compare, you study these HIPAA terms a little bit. And if anyone needs to, you know, kind of ask questions at all, please feel free. We'll make clarification anytime, because it gets confusing when you're heading down a path to invest in HIPAA. And nowadays, the doc has to have a HIPAA budget. You know, annually, I don't know, the average dental office should plan to spend about $2,000–3,000 on HIPAA services each year. That's just the cost of doing business. You know, you have to protect, make things private and secure.
So you have two websites, right? You have DENTAL-enhancements.com, and you also have, what was the other one?
HIPAA-omnibusrule.com.
Can you send me that, Ryan? But what are my homies going to find on your website, DENTAL-enhancements.com?
They are going to find out what's required in each state for OSHA and HIPAA. So a lot of doctors think,
I want to stop you right there. 25% of the people listening to the show, I always say, email me, howard@dentaltown.com, and tell me who you are, your demographic. 25% are in dental school. So, and they're almost never over 30. My oldest son is 28. So these are all in dental kindergarten. So start with, what is the OSHA? What's the difference between OSHA and HIPAA? What are they? So go all the way to the beginning.
Okay. So OSHA will deal with your employee safety. And sometimes OSHA laws for safety when you have employees, different than workman's comp, different than human resources or anything like that. Literally, it deals with employee safety. And it changes and evolves every single year. Ties in with the Department of Health a little bit, crosses over to patient safety as well. Now even environmental safety. So OSHA kind of is the foundation to make sure employees are safe, and then it can layer itself out to protect patients and even the public. HIPAA was introduced back in the 90s, and originally it was based on health insurance and making sure you could take your health insurance from state to state. Then it expanded to protect patient information. In the late 90s, when people were having medical histories, we started sharing a bunch of information on the internet explosion. There were some executives trying to get high-end jobs, and different companies were sharing and selling patient information. So their medical history, if they have communicable diseases, government stepped in and said, nope, that's a no-no. Today, HIPAA has two components, privacy and security. So we really have to protect the patient information. That's called protected health information. And that involves anything like a name, address, phone number, social security number, account numbers, even full-face photos. Those are all protected PHI, protected health information. On the other side of HIPAA is security, and the security means securing papers, your copy machine, texting, emails, of course, what you send out on the internet as well. So configuring your computers with firewalls and routers. OSHA, employee safety. HIPAA is privacy of the patient information and the security of that information. So that's pretty good start foundation, so you know the difference between that. And then you asked me what each office needs, right? So on dental enhancements, they'll get enlightened. Hey, we don't want to just do like one person does an OSHA training every year. All the team has to be trained each and every year for an annual update. There is a new module for OSHA. Once in the dental office's lifetime, they have to train on something called Global Harmonization System. That's a really fancy name for international chemical safety. That's new since 2013. And then every team member also has to be trained to these HIPAA omnibus rules. 3 certifications have to take place for all employees. If you live in Michigan, you get an extra pretty intense Michigan OSHA certification, and Texas has an additional state protocol too. So really 3, you got to do the top 3. Annual OSHA, that's a federal requirement, international OSHA, Global Harmonization System, and federal HIPAA, that's called omnibus rules. So that's what they'll find on dental enhancements, kind of how to navigate through.
And what percent? America has 211,000 living humans that have a license to practice dentistry. 150,000 are general dentists, 32 hours a week or more. 30,000 are one of the 9 specialties recognized by the ADA, 32 hours a week or more. What percent of those 211,000 dentists do you think are up to speed and have done their requirements?
And completely compliant? It's not a lot. I'd say 20%, 25%. This is a niche, man. This is great. But you know, a lot of docs want to put their head in the sand, or you don't know, so you don't worry about it until you get that fateful visit from the OSHA inspector or the HIPAA auditor. A HIPAA audit lasts 18 months. And you're going to be answering to that auditor week after week after week. It's so much rigors where you can get HIPAA certified and get your whole office up to par with paperwork and protocols in like 15 hours. We start you out, we'll do, like my company does.
So your company can get them up to speed in 15 hours.
Well, you know, we started out with a 90-minute webinar. So you get your team to sit and get enrolled in the language. Team goes back to work. They're kind of introduced and everyone gets the total immersion. Now, one person will stay on the phone, will fill in a HIPAA manual, will take you through the forms. We update forms and they're specifically designed for the dental office. And then an auditor always asks for a risk assessment report. Man, that thing takes 10 hours to do. But we have a template. We help the office manager or the doctor go through the template and answer these 150 questions about your HIPAA protocols. So we start you out with that training and the admin session. It's about 3 hours long. And then for the additional 12 hours that you have to work on your own protocols, you can call our trainers 24/7. Man, we answer the phone early morning, Saturday afternoon, Sunday, because let's face it, most docs...
And what is that number?
The number to call us.
Yeah.
941-587-2864. And
if they're listening to this right now and they're at the bathroom at 7-Eleven, can they write it on the wall?
They can, man. They can.
941-587-2864. Yes, so basically you're saying that 80% of the dentists listening to us right now, they're not compliant. And what I'm saying is that with the technology of disease outbreaks, I don't care if it's Legionnaires' disease, tuberculosis, I don't care what it is, they are tracing this back to dental offices. That would be the ultimate nightmare. And then you're saying the next level size, I would say when a dozen people in your community contract a disease in your office, that would be an earthquake on a Richter scale of 8. And you're saying it's a Richter scale of 7.0 to have HIPAA come in and do an 18-month investigation that's going to ding you for probably $150 and attorney's fees of $50,000. And I mean, I know my homies. I mean, I drink with them at bars almost every night. I don't think 4 out of 5 of my friends could even prove if their autoclave worked.
No, yeah, for sure. Exactly. CDC has new guidelines, came out in 2016 for autoclaves. Do you know you have to have autoclavable change bag? Check, no problem. Third-party spore test, that's best practices, because if your autoclave fails, you have to prove it through a report and all these bacteria that are killed. The third thing that they added, dating the bags. Did you know that autoclave bags have a shelf life? I mean, who knows this stuff? So dating the bags so you can pull them out if you have a failure in between your third-party test. That's new. TB, you mentioned TB. Another thing from the CDC report in 2016, no one knows this stuff. Did you know now, if you hire a new employee, it doesn't matter if they're clinical or non-clinical, you have to give them that old-fashioned TB test because TB's on the rise. In 2010, there were like 4 cases found in Florida. Why do they always find everything in Florida? And then 2015, there's 500 deaths. Last year, there were 9,600 active TB cases. So we're susceptible. And these CDC guidelines, the new ones from 2016, they're a hassle to read, 44-page document. By the way, I'll give them to any of the townies that want a copy of that at no charge. You don't have to search around. I'll just send you the PDF. Have a staff meeting.
How do they get the PDF?
PDF, just email Jill at DENTAL-OSHA.com. Jill at DENTAL-OSHA.com. I'll send out that PDF. It's a great start.
Well, you know why I think you're seeing an increase in TB? And I mean, this is Dentistry Uncensored, and I've never been politically correct because I just like the science. I don't care if it hurts your feelings. But if you go back to 1917, so we're at 2017. You go back to 1917. Well, we already would have had a World War I, and during World War I was the Spanish influenza that killed 5% of the planet, which traced back to where I was born. I was born in Wichita, Kansas. It was the biggest crime scene in the world, and they traced it all back. A pig gave it to a farmer who was then drafted to World War I and went to Leavenworth, which had the first major outbreak. But the World War I is moving all those troops around, all those countries moving troops around, and they could follow the disease with the troop movement and then to the post office of different countries. Like there were islands in the South Pacific, no outbreak, and then they get their mail once a month from their mother country. And the mail guy would come, and then he would leave, and then 5-10% of the island people would die. And today, there are 27,000 international flights a day. Yeah. So the next time we get a superbug, which last occurred a century ago, I mean, it'll stir around all 7.5 billion people that day. I mean, you won't even know where it's coming from. And Miami and Los Angeles, these big international airports, I mean, if Heathrow Airport goes through, 5 million people a year, somebody's sick from somewhere. And so that's going to be crazy. And what's funny is how today, 2017, what's the only thing you hear on vaccines is that they don't want it for their kids. It's like, really? Really? A century ago, 1 out of 20 people died during the flu season, and the only lesson you learned is you don't want the vaccine? Whatever,
Yeah, the care is unsafe.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt you with that, but these diseases, I mean, that guy could have TB in Florida and get on Southwest Airlines and fly to Phoenix.
For sure. I saw a lecturer from World Health Organization, and he showed, 50 years ago, 200 years ago, someone would travel 25 miles, and that was really being a well-traveled. And then the next generation, you're traveling maybe 250 miles. Now, this generation, you could go around the earth 25 times in your lifetime. You probably already have. And don't you see that on the plane? Sometimes I get on a plane and I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to get off here and not get sick? Because there's not proper ventilation. They're not cleaning all the air filtration systems. And there's another new thing in dentistry. This is crazy. There's a new tracking for beryllium and silica. So this is mostly in dental lab professionals. But now they're tracking beryllium and silica containing products. It's microscopic. This dust gets not only on clothing and in hair of dental employees, they take that dust home with them, and they're finding that dental employees and their families, again, that work around beryllium and silica containing products, can get COPD and lung cancer. So tying that back to OSHA, well, what does that have to do with those MSDS sheets? Those material safety data sheets, now they're updated to these new international format. The government's going to start pulling and looking and tracking this in our profession. So really pay attention. If you go in your dental lab, look for any products containing beryllium and silica. We now have a program to clean up and make sure you get blood tested and just take precautions, man. We don't want to wait for...
You want to know how old I am? I graduated in 1987, so I was in dental school 84 to 87. You know how we made our gold crowns? We would wax them up, and then we'd invest them, but we would line the container with asbestos, and then we'd pour it out. Then we would put that in there to burn the wax out. So I'm standing in front of these ovens where this thing's glowing red, and we take it, the asbestos was glowing red. Oh, God. I mean, you can't smell an apple in your garage, but if you had an apple pie out there baking, so many charged molecules of apple pie, when you smell apple pie, there's actually a piece of apple pie touching your nose, going in your nose. So I can't tell you how many pieces of glowing red asbestos I pulled out of the damn oven. That's why at this point I think it's useless to even change the water in my bong, because I figure with that much glowing red asbestos,
Well, Dr. Farran, you said you're out drinking every night, so you're kind of preserving.
I wanted to ask you, you're talking about beryllium and silica. Do they ever mention mercury in the silver fillings? Is that part of their domain or talk? Or?
I think, like you said before, we talked about, certain standards and contributions to certain organizations. So if we're going to preserve mercury and you don't find that it's a problem, I think that becomes more of a personal choice. But some states do, like New York does. They have a mercury containing program. And new this year, I will say that a federal law was passed that every dentist that works with mercury in the course of his duties more than 5% of the time, they have to have an amalgam separator, a machine to cleanse the water. Again, this goes into environmental safety. And then every office should have a container called an amalgam recycling container for extracted teeth with fillings. Those can't go in Sharp's container, can't go in the trash. And then if you have scrap amalgam, of course, but the traps and the filters get coated with amalgam when you take out mercury fillings. So there's certain containment and certain restrictions for removing amalgam, removing mercury. So again, that's under OSHA. standard.
Those traps are so nasty that our office passed a law that only the dental assistants can change them.
Yeah, with masks and everything else and garb. And
I got to tell you another how old I am. Sorry. So I got at 87. My buddy, we're in Phoenix. My buddy bought this old retiring guy's practice in South Phoenix, and he had carpet. But for his 40 years, they used to mix the mercury and squeeze the excess out. He had carpet, and after about 3 or 4 years, Ryan, I'm sorry I did this to you because I have 4 boys, and Ryan's my 3rd boy, and he asked me if I'd help him pull his carpet. So I threw my 4 boys in the Suburban. We drove over there. We pulled out the carpet. There were balls of mercury formed on the cement floor, and my boys spent the whole night running around kicking the balls because they'd roll into the walls, split in two. It was like billiards. And after we pulled out all the carpet, we're just literally like, oh my God. And he'd been in there drilling, filling, and billing for probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 years before that, or I don't know, but it was crazy.
Talk about inhaling that stuff. That's crazy. Yeah, mercury or carpet not allowed in the office for OSHA. That's an OSHA law for sure. Wow, what a story.
But you still see carpet in operatories, though.
Sometimes, one of the laws is they don't want that big red bag stored on the carpet, and they don't want that for mercury reasons too. It just pulls all the bad stuff, and you're just breathing it all the time. Silica, beryllium.
You know what? I always fought hard for silver fillings, but you know what the last straw was for me? First of all, I almost have never done them in my office because the market doesn't want them. I mean, you could be a 74-year-old man with one eye and a liver spot the size of a golf ball in your forehead and say, I don't want a silver filling. It's like, trust me, dude, when you have a liver spot, no one's looking at your teeth, okay? And but for me, the final, silver fillings are lasting 38 years and composites are lasting 6. Now, the dentists don't want to believe that any more than anything because it'll pop their bubble. But the data is factual. Any great study on composite longevity is about 6.5 years. And the reason amalgams last 38 years because half of it's mercury, which you'll never find in a multivitamin, and the other half is silver, zinc, copper, and tin. Tin is used in stannous fluoride. Every silver diamine fluoride. Every ingredient in amalgam is antibacterial, and every filling fails from a bacterial infection. So it's obvious. But what drew the line on me was that when I found out that obviously the oceans in my lifetime have gone from 1 part per million mercury to 4 parts per million, and it's from burning coal. Dirty, nasty coal. The smoke goes up in the air, comes down. 70% of the ocean, 70% of the Earth's ocean. But 6% came from cremating humans that had silver fillings in their teeth.
Wow. Crazy.
And it's like you could get rid of 6% of environmental deal. If you just passed a law that said you can't cremate someone until a dentist goes in there and extracts the teeth. And I mean, you wouldn't even need an anesthesia. You wouldn't need topical. You wouldn't need to dig out the roots. You just need to go in there with a pair of 150s and just snap off the crowns that have amalgams. But can you
that's a whole new niche. That's a whole
and think of that poor son of a gun who's cremating them. I think of myself standing in front of the lab burner at dental school pulling out glowing red hot asbestos. That poor son of a gun in the crematory, he doesn't even have a clue. Could you imagine when he opens that door what his blood mercury would do?
Yeah, for sure.
So that's something you need to worry. That's your project. I mean, that's Howie's project for Jill. Write that on your New Year's resolution. That's your homework assignment for 2018. But I'm serious. That has to be done now.
Hey, that's why they have them putting the extracted teeth with silver fillings in these amalgam recycling containers. And then when they take the container from the dental office, they don't put it through heat sterilization. They put it through a cold distillation process. And the cold distilling makes the mercury inert and then safe to go back into the environment. So, it needs to connect through all the different channels, even when we're leaving this earth, right? And the poor guy that's standing at the crematory, agreed, man, that's crazy. Good to know. Good stuff.
Yeah, and you're in Florida. You probably have some really innocent crematories, unlike New Jersey, where they're all owned by the mafia. So
we have stuff going on down here. Everything crazy happens in Florida. Everything. So HIPAA, identity theft, huge. Originating usually out of Miami. California wrote a big paper on HIPAA identity thievery. But the best thing to do is just kind of look into the laws and just do some research and then align yourself. What I'm doing here day after day with my team, it is such a little subspecialty, such a niche that truly a lot of docs just need answers, to questions. So we're just super glad to be able to, work with townies and give them some answers and, just make sure you get yourself on track with this stuff.
We're going to be, our next townie meeting, the first 15 years we were in Vegas because 15 years ago, you still, our generation is still hungover from, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis and Vegas and a martini and gambling and all that stuff. And the millennials just think it's gross. They don't smoke. They don't, so we're doing that. We signed up the next 2 years, or the next one's in Orlando. Mm-hmm. And we just signed up yesterday for the second year. So maybe you can come see us since you're, how far is Sarasota from Disney World?
Yeah, 2 hours. 2 hours. Easy hours. Yeah, an easy truck up the road. Yeah, there's everything to do in Orlando too.
So you said you had 2 websites. The other one was HIPAA Omnibus Rule. Explain what HIPAA Omnibus Rule is. And what are my homies going to find if they go to that site?
So HIPAAomnibusrule.com. What is that? When they changed the HIPAA laws back in 2013, originally they have HIPAA is Health Insurance Portability Act of 96. They add the high-tech law around 2010. 2013, everything changes. There's 500 pages of HIPAA law, and in 2013, they add 80 more pages, and they call it the omnibus rules of HIPAA. What's an omnibus, you ask? Well, it's when they have a previously published volume and they add more to it. So in 2012, I studied the prelude to the release of these omnibus rules with HIPAA lawmakers. We were preparing, and then we had all of this whole module, training, webinar training, copy of that on video training for employees, the HIPAA omnibus rule manual, forms and reports that are needed to become compliant. So thank God I was in the right position and I bought the rights to HIPAAomnibusrule.com. So that serves all healthcare, not just dentists. So we have chiropractor, medical, and it just tells you a little bit what's the law, why do I need it, what do I have to do to implement, and then we sell those modules and makes it easy. It's called HIPAA Maybe. We provide help, guide you through. You get your paperwork, your employee training, and the protocols for the office. And we do updates every year too. So it just gives the doc a little peace of mind. Not only is he implementing, but you want to keep up on this stuff because it changes so frequently because of technology, right, in the way we communicate.
Well, congratulations on getting that name.
Thank you. It was pretty cool. Yeah, keeps us busy. I'm so dedicated to our dental niche, but that HIPAAomnibusrule.com, it's just such an easy way to find the info, and it helps all healthcare professionals because God knows with everything that we have to keep up on, it's good when you can get a break and just kind of streamline something and integrate it into the practice.
So let's talk nitty-gritty details and just get her done. The problem with dentists and the reason so many young millennials are going to corporate is because you just have too many hats. I mean, not only you got to learn dentistry, but you got to learn endo and perio and it's just so overwhelming. So, and this is just one more damn hat they have to wear. Do you think it's best? Do you see as successful just telling your lead wet hand? I mean, you got dry hands up front, wet hands up back. Go to your lead wet hand, your chief dental assistant, and can she just do all this, and I don't even have to know what's going on? Or does the dentist really have to spend a lot of time with this?
God, there's these 2 changes, those CDC guidelines that changed in 2016. You can have a lead dental assistant. We have 80 pages in our OSHA manual, 300-page OSHA manual, 80 pages they have to customize. So yes, you can allow that lead dental assistant about 3 hours, and we'll work with her for about an hour and a half, and then she can finish up, give her a couple extra hours to finish up the book. Please have a meeting on these new CDC guidelines. Plan out an hour, spend it with your team, see what's going on. It's for everyone's own good in their health. We talked about beryllium, silica, TB, so that's important. But HIPAA's the new OSHA. If the doc doesn't have his hands and his mind wrapped around HIPAA, then we're heading down really a bad path. It's not good enough for an office manager or a receptionist to play the head role as far as HIPAA. when an auditor comes in, doc's going to be responsible. Did you know they now monitor copy machines, text, emails, faxes? The doctor really has to wrap his head around, how are we handling this information? How is it secured and protected? Where do we have to have encryption? And how much is his HIPAA budget for the year? That's super important.
And do you know the HIPAA budget? I mean, is it a percentage of collections? Is it when you say HIPAA budget, what are you thinking?
You know, I'm thinking that the average dental office, now not if we have 8 or 10 operatories, 2 or 3 operatories, I'm going to say on average between training, encryption of your emails, faxes, making sure that you have proper offsite backup, I'm going to say that's $2,000 to $3,000 a year. So if it's an average size office, 2 to 3 operatories, a couple hygienists and a doctor. And that's just the cost of doing business. Hey, I have cost of doing business, you do. We have to keep up on technology and make sure our websites are functioning and looking good. Our customer relations software is looking good, loading properly. Same thing for a doctor. But HIPAA truly is the new OSHA, and you've got to get yourself geared up. Why? The average OSHA fine last year was $1,700. By the way, they don't just look for one thing wrong. They're self-funded, those OSHA offices, and so they're looking for multiple infractions. The lowest fine is going to be 10 grand, and it can go up to 1.5 million. The average Joe dental professional, he's not going to get 1.5 million in fines, but I've seen it as far as 150,000. That's crushing.
So you're saying the lowest HIPAA, the average OSHA fine is 1,700. On HIPAA, the low fine is 10,000, but it goes all the way up to the average doctor's divorce, which is 1.5 million.
Yeah, there you go.
So you're saying, so HIPAA is the new divorce.
I love it. It is. HIPAA's the new divorce, man. Pay attention. So you want your office manager handling your divorce? No. You want to pay attention and, get it done and get it behind you, just like a divorce, right? Although we do an annual update every year for HIPAA because technology changes so much. So you have to revisit your divorce once a year.
You know what I love the most about divorce is, when I was little, it was always the old men dentist bitching. And I went to dinner the other night, and this woman I'm 55, she was 58. She bitched the whole night because what her husband did is he quit his job a year before he filed. And now now it's happening to women. And when I see a woman dentist get screwed for $1.5 million, I just love it. I mean, I jump up and down, I cheer, because until it starts affecting the women, nothing's going to change. When it was just a big penalty on rich men, everybody just laughed on the side. But now that rich dentists or female dentists are starting to pay these $1.5 million settlements to some deadbeat, maybe they'll change the laws. What % of your clients use that iCore Connect for their offsite?
We don't monitor or track who's using it. We have a checklist. So you go through we research, and a lot of times I'll work with, I like the dental advisor, or I'm doing some research with different entities. A lot of times we're working with HIPAA lawmakers, and they're asking questions about what works, what doesn't work. So I give them a checklist of who we think is best practices and reliable, but I don't really follow back to see if they're using it. I want to make sure
because that was a real important thing, because that solves several problems. I mean, 30 years of being a dentist, I can't tell you how it seems like every year some dentist loses his whole practice management software. And it's little things like they did everything right, but somebody backed it up to the D drive instead of the C drive. Or there's always something. It's like they did everything right, and then there was something. And when you lose $150,000 worth of accounts receivable, I mean, your patients aren't going to call you up and say, Jill, I was just wondering, do I owe you money?
Sure.
I swear to God, I thought I owed you $1,000. They never say shit.
Right.
And that is a ton of money. And then you're saying if you back up your drive and take it home and you lose it, or someone talk about leaving it in the trunk of your car. Hell, I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I am 100 miles from the Mexican border. I have had, having my car stolen is like having a kid. You know what I mean? I mean, they steal them. They steal them when you're going to Circle K. So you can't really take home. So you got to do cloud storage. My only comment I want to make on that is Microsoft The one thing that's interesting about Microsoft is, when I was a kid in college, 1980 freshman, the big stocks were the Nifty 50, led by Kodak and Xerox. And then in 1994, it was the big four that everybody owned was Dell, Microsoft, Intel, and Oracle. And now everybody's got all their money in a couple of bubbles, Bitcoin, which is a fraudulently insane bubble, and I can't wait till you lose all your money in it just to ask you what the shit were you thinking. But the legitimate equities are FANG, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, and still Microsoft. So Microsoft has survived two of the bubble stocks for 25 years. And the reason why everybody's liking their cloud storage is because the leader in cloud storage is actually Amazon. And Amazon booked $3.5 billion of revenue in that. But what people are finding out is when you cloud storage on Amazon, they're mining your data. So big retailers were using Amazon's cloud, and then Amazon's using that data to say, oh, Jill's selling it at $3, so we'll sell it at $2.50. But I think Microsoft is going to be one of the most legitimate cloud storage because they don't sell anything retail. There's no reason for Microsoft. And then Microsoft also just bought LinkedIn, and I think that's an interesting cloud storage play. I want to connect me with that iCore Connect. Tell him if he's the only compliant, HIPAA compliant cloud-based software, he should come on the show and tell us what's going on. But I do think that you need to have your backups on the cloud, because when it all goes down, the first thing I would want is my damn account receivable information back. Then the second thing I'd want is not to have lost all this patient information and have to call the federal government. I want to ask you another question. So HIPAA and OSHA, that's Washington, D.C. federal government. But we have federal government and we have state government. Of the 50 different states, is it pretty much a federal play and it's pretty homogenous? Or is there a lot of nuances when you're dealing with a dentist from Nebraska versus Oklahoma versus Arizona versus, you mentioned earlier, Michigan? Is there a lot of state nuances, or is it mostly federal?
Michigan is the worst, man, because when Detroit was going bankrupt, they went sovereign from the rest of the country and they made up their own OSHA laws, which means more revenue, and they dug Detroit out. But there's 3 levels of OSHA: state, federal, and international. So for the state, there's about 16 states. So if you're doing a federal training with whatever trainer, my company, anyone you train with, your trainer should always know, hey, what are we dealing with federally? That's across the board homogenous, like you said. But then in these 16 states, there's either paperwork or little laws, little nuances that you have to do something else. New York has amalgam, containment that's even stricter. New Jersey, disposal of needles a certain way. Tennessee has things with prescription writing. So what we do is we give you access to a sub-page on our website. You go in there with a password and you can get all of your paperwork and you get some additional guidance of what you need for your state.
But which website? Are you talking about HIPAA Omnibus Rule?
On the DentalEnhancements.com.
Dental Enhancements, okay.
Let's say you're doing federal. Of course, one of our questions, what state are you in? So if we know which states are going to need additional modules, we'll give you all that paperwork, and then we'll help you to fill that out. What's important to keep in mind is state, federal, don't forget that international module. Every dental office since 2013 had to do that global harmonization system. It's international chemical safety. And what changes, your MSDS sheets, they changed.
Is that something with the United Nations World Health Organization, or what is?
It was world meetings back in 2012. The World Summit was probably a decade ago, more than a decade ago, the World Summit meetings. And the rest of the world's been on the global harmonization system for 10 years. USA just really got into it 2 years ago. The red diamond pictograms. Now they replaced those colorful square symbols for hazardous chemicals with these red diamond symbols. They're called pictograms. That's one component. And you have to change your USA material safety data sheets over to an international version. Inspectors are going to check for this stuff, and everyone should be trained in chemical safety. It does keep us safer, but it's a lot of rigmarole to learn this. So you got to align yourself. State, federal, homogenous, and then international chemical safety is homogenous as well.
It's called global harmonization
system, global harmonization system, or GHS.
Yes, global harmonization system. So just so instead of eHarmony, now my homie's got to also sign up for G harmonization system.
You got it.
I got it. All right. So what's got you passionate for? Well, first of all, go through you're an international published writer and educator for several top industry manufacturers, including you work with Capital One, Waterpik, 3M, Proctor Gamble. What do those 4 companies have to do with what you do?